الله أكبر الله أكبر.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله الله بالحق بصيرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد صلاة وسلاما دائمين متلازمين إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We seek His forgiveness, His guidance, and His assistance. And we take refuge with Him from the evil within our souls and from the consequence of our misdeeds. Whoever Allah gives guidance to, none can mislead, and whoever misleads, none can guide. I bear witness that there's nothing and no one worthy of worship besides Allah alone. He has no partners. And I bear witness that Muhammad ibn Abdullah is His servant and messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant him peace, mercy, and to extend to him our salutations on this blessed and special day, during this blessed and special month, just as we ask him to grant peace to his family members, his companions, and all those who follow in goodness and practice goodwill into the meeting and the reckoning of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought us to 2/3 of the month of Ramadan in our fast. Fast on these long days, hot days. And I would say that, alhamdulillah, it has been relatively easy, at least for me, and hopefully it has been the same for the rest of you up to this point. A sign of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this ummah, that this has been the case. The month of Ramadan has many different designations, many different names. The month of Ramadan is known as the month of endurance, or Shahr al-Sabr, the month of patience, perseverance. It is known as the month of gratitude, Shahr al-Shukr, the month of gratitude. It is known as the month of consolation, Muwasat. It is the time when Muslims themselves try to console the poor in the community during this month. And it is also known as the month of altruism, Shahr al-Ithar. It has many different names, many different designations. But this month, Ramadan, Shahr Ramadan, is a month of the commemoration, the celebration of the Quran. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in His holy book, Shahr Ramadan alladhi unzila fihi al-Quran. The month of Ramadan is the month wherein the Quran was revealed, Hudal lin-nas, as a guidance for humanity, وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنَ الْهُدَى, and clarifications of that guidance for Furqan. And the criterion of determining truth from falsehood, good from bad, what is moral from that which is immoral, that the Quran is that Furqan for the believer. And so this is a month of a commemoration of this event, wherein during the night of power, known as Laylatul Qadr, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sent the book down from the Lawh al-Mahfuz, the preserved tablet, into the lowest heaven, into Bayt al-Izzah, the house of honor, which is found in the lowest heaven. And then after that, over a period of 23 years, He continued to send down different verses and chapters of it to the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. So we're celebrating guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But I do think that during this blessed month, it is important as well to call our attention at times to some things that were very special that happened during the life of the Prophet ﷺ, and then even during the lives of some other great sages amongst his companions and others. The month of Ramadan is not only these things that is mentioned, but a number of important events happened during the month of Ramadan. 2 days ago, if my calculations are correct, on the 17th day of Ramadan was what we call the Ghazwat Badr al-Kubra, the Battle of Badr, which it is termed, and it happened on the 17th of the month of Ramadan. Today, the 19th of the month of Ramadan, was the day when Ibn al-Muljam stabbed Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu an. And among the lessons we learned from that is that a Muslim, even a Muslim at times, will stab you in the back, not only metaphorically, but even physically. And this can happen when we have an ideological or philosophical difference. And so we see this. Ibn al-Muljam himself, being a Muslim, was led to an extreme and then did what he did on this particular day. And then tomorrow will be a commemoration of the conquest of Mecca, because the conquest of Mecca happened on the 20th of the month of Ramadan. Now, so these are things we keep in mind as we go through this month. And we should take the opportunity during these days to reflect and return to these stories, to try to see what lessons we can extract from them, what lessons are there during these days. And we know that the last 10 days of the month of Ramadan are months of days of ijtihad, the days of due diligence that the Prophet ﷺ encouraged us to do our utmost during these nights in order to seek out the night of power, and hopefully that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants us the blessing, the great blessing of that night, the reward of which is like the reward of an entire lifetime of a human being. But I do want to come back, even though today would be the commemoration of the assassination on Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib's life, radiallahu an, but rather I actually want to go back to reflect upon lessons from the Battle of Badr. And one of the reasons is that when we think about the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and especially in light of current events and the type of pressures that Muslims find themselves under, that there is the tendency to, I guess you would say, to perhaps whitewash even the prophetic ethos. In the same way that some people would like to whitewash the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. or the legacy of Malcolm X, and then some recently, our most recent departed Muhammad Ali, that some would like to as well, just to simply portray him as an individual who was not concerned with the struggles of the people, of his own people to begin with, but struggled for injustice in society overall. But there's a tendency, I would say, that Muslims have developed, is to emphasize the compassion and the mercy and the softness of the Prophet ﷺ. And he was definitely soft and compassionate and gentle individual. That was his norm. But there also was a very firm side, sometimes an abrasive side to the Prophet ﷺ, that he is described in the books of Sirah as a person لا ينتقم لنفسه, who did not seek vengeance for himself, إلا أن تنتهك حرمات الله, unless the sanctities of God were then violated. Then we found him to be firm and abrasive and stern. As a matter of fact, in the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the Prophet ﷺ with regard to his being challenged by the mushrikeen, those who actually tried to kill him and kill his companions and succeeded in doing so in certain cases, that he says to him, Jahid al-Kufara wal-Munafiqina waghluz alayhim, that wage struggle against the rejectors of faith and the hypocrites and the rejectors of faith, and show them sternness, show them some abrasiveness. وَلْيَجِدُوا فِيكُمْ غِلظَةً, and he also says the same thing to the believers, let them feel some abrasiveness in you. So we have to remember that when we talk about the Prophet ﷺ, that we want to give the whole picture of the Prophet ﷺ, that there were certain instances where he himself did show a certain type of abrasiveness, and rightfully so, when certain types of sanctities were being challenged. And so the Battle of Badr is an important event in the life or the history of Islam that we should reflect upon during these blessed days, during these blessed months. As I said, that his ethos was that of a very gentle and kind person overall. But his ethos was also one of a man of justice and courage, and even a warrior. The Prophet ﷺ was even a warrior. And actually there's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, شَرُّ مَا فِي الْمَرْءِ شُحٌ هَارِعٌ وَجُبْنٌ خَادِعٌ. He said the worst traits in any person, and in particular a man, the worst traits to be found in a man are worried stinginess and petrifying cowardice. Worrying stinginess, like some people, you ask them they ask them for money, they don't want to give. They give anyway, but some people that they're always on edge. Shuhun halid. They don't want to give anything at all. But the worst thing that can be in a person are those two characteristics. And then a type of petrifying cowardice, where a person is led to the point that he would not even defend himself or his own family. And so why are these characteristics important? Because when it comes to the defense of the community, that sometimes you have to go into your pocket. If anything, much of it you have to go into your pocket in order to preserve the community. When we look in the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He actually talks about that those people who Allah will replace if they turn their backs, that those verses are typically in the context of people who refuse to spend fi sabilillah. And fi sabilillah meant those who defend for the defense of the community. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He talks about, He said, وَأَنْفِقُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى تَهْلُكَةٍ. And spend in the way of Allah, and do not cast yourselves into destruction with your own hands. A verse which is often quoted as evidence that it's haram to smoke cigarettes. But when we look at the context, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually talking about spending in the way of the defense of the community, right? And so you have to be an individual who overcomes your stinginess. And then you can't be a person of cowardice, because sometimes you may be required to defend yourself, or defend your family, or defend your community physically. That it may happen at times. And one thing we learn when we look at the different expeditions of the Prophet ﷺ, going back to emphasizing, yes, that his norm was one of being a gentle person. And even when we look at the different expeditions, that it actually comes out when you look at the very fact that the Prophet ﷺ actually throughout his career as the Messenger of Allah ﷺ had only 29 military expeditions. And of those 29, 11, there was fighting in only 11 of them. So about 1/3 of those. And over the period of his life, when we look at the wars between the Muslims and the non-Muslims, during that times, at less than 1,700 or about 1,700 casualties actually happened in these particular battles. So he wasn't a bloodthirsty person, that he preferred peace over war. But it is something we need to reflect upon. And cowardice is something which is blameworthy. Even certain Sahaba, that we find that the Prophet ﷺ policy was a policy of voluntary service. Not all the men had to even serve. Those men who had the physical capacity to fight, they were encouraged to fight. Those who had the arms to fight, they were encouraged to fight. But those who, even if they had the arms and the physical capacity to fight, that they felt so fearful to do so, the Prophet didn't force them to come to the battle. And one of those people was Hassan ibn Thabit, the famous poet for defending, known for his poetry for defending the Prophet ﷺ. His biographers describe him of a person of extreme cowardice. That, and this is not meant to denigrate him, but it's just basically, it's one of just highlighting the fact that the Prophet ﷺ, the service is voluntary. And so that is one thing, because the Prophet ﷺ wanted people to be rewarded for the decisions they made. And he knew that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will only reward you if you do something willfully. It's one of the same reasons why certain things continue to be lawful in Islam and the Prophet didn't prohibit them, was because he wanted people to willfully abandon certain types of things. All throughout the Quran, Allah is reminding us وَمَا عَلَى الرَّسُولِ إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينَ, that the messenger's duty is only to give a clear proclamation. وَلَسْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِمُسَيْطِرٍ, you are not an overlord over them. among other things. But this battle of Badr, as mentioned before, it was, in some ways, it was the first major battle of what we can call the Muslim Revolutionary War. We have an American Revolution, right? But this is the first major battle of it. It's called the Major Battle of Badr because it wasn't the first time that Muslims actually had some type of confrontation with the mushrikeen in Badr. In that same year, year 2 after the Hijrah to Medina, there was some type of confrontation, but no one was killed. But this was the first major battle of this Revolutionary War. And so before even getting into some of the details of this, it's important just to remind ourselves of the very fact that the Prophet ﷺ and his companions leading up to this particular battle, 13 years in Mecca, suffered persecution. They suffered sometimes even murder. That we know of the story of Bilal ibn Rabah radiallahu anh, and his courage. And we also know of the story of the very first martyr in Islam, Sumayyah bint Khayyat radiallahu anha, that she was killed because she didn't have the protection of the clans, being an African woman, the wife of an Arab man from Yemen, who himself also did not have the protection because he himself was from Yemen. But 13 years of persecution. And the persecution for what? Persecution because they just wanted to worship Allah alone. That they wanted to have the freedom to practice their religion, to believe whatever they wanted, to practice whatever they wanted. But the Meccans did not allow it. They did not want that to happen. So they underwent boycotts where their people tried to starve them. They had to make hijrah to Abyssinia, as we know, that their wealth was usurped by their neighbors, that they were denied religious freedom. And during this period, it was considered to be unlawful, haram, for the Muslims to actually fight. It was haram for them to fight back, even though sometimes they wanted to. So they had to practice restraint during this period for 13 years. And then on the tail end of this, after this period of time, a group of men from Yathrib, they visit Mecca and they offer the Prophet ﷺ fealty, a pledge of allegiance and an opportunity to take up asylum in Medina. They call it the fealty of Aqaba, as we know. About 81 men were in this, and they gave fealty to the Prophet ﷺ that if he came to, then the companions come to Medina, that they would have their protection. And so this was now the first opportunity that Muslims had at statehood. They formed a strategic alliance with the tribes of Medina, including the Jewish tribes in this city. They were part of this Ummah Wahida, this one nation spoken about in the Mithaq of Medina, the Medinan document, as we know. And the immigrants, the Muhajirin themselves, they come to Medina impoverished, where their lands have been taken from them, their wealth has been taken from them. They come there impoverished. So what did the Prophet do, alayhi salatu wasalam? He pairs them up with one another, sometimes Muhajir with Muhajir, sometimes Muhajir with Ansari, as a type of spiritual brotherhood, as a way to ensure that one another's needs were taken care of. That you become responsible for this brother. That if he needs something, you have to make sure he gets it. And so the Ansar, the beautiful people they were, they opened up their hearts and opened up their homes, and they shared their wealth with Muhajirin. But on one particular occasion, in this year, the second year after the Hijrah, in Ramadan, on this particular day, we find that word had reached the Prophet ﷺ that there was a caravan with a number of goods coming from Syria, coming back down to Mecca, being led by Abu Sufyan and about 40 other Meccans to protect the caravan. The Prophet ﷺ saw this as an opportunity to go and retrieve some of what had been taken from them, or at least to also do similar to what had been done to them. And so about 314 of his Sahaba, Ansar, Muhajirin, they join him. They set out to try to intercept the caravan. Somehow word reaches the caravan. Abu Sufyan, he's leading, and he decides that he's going to take a different path back to Mecca. And he sends a warner before him to Mecca, asking them to inform the Meccans that the Muslims are coming to try to take your goods, take this caravan. Now word reaches Mecca. The chiefs among the Meccans, they start to mobilize their forces. And they head out eventually. And of course, I'm cutting out a lot of details. They mobilize their forces, they head out to meet the Muslims. The Muslims only want to get the spoils. That's all they want. We want the property. That's all we're looking for. Right? But once this word comes to them, realizes that, you know what, now this is army coming to kill us. Some of the Sahaba, they don't want to fight. Say, Ya Rasulullah, we just came to get the goods. We don't want to fight. Right? Others say, Ya Rasulullah, we're with you. Do whatever you want. He consults them. There's a consultation that happens. The Prophet ﷺ gives people an opportunity to express themselves and to make a decision. Do you want to fight or not fight? So again, voluntary service, but he also wants to make sure that if you do this, that you're doing it willfully, not because someone's forcing you to do it. And so, alhamdulillah, the Muslims, they decide that they'll be ready. So they come to this place called Badr, which has a number of wells. An idea is given to one companion, Habab ibn al-Mundhir, after observing that the Prophet ﷺ had positioned the Muslims in a place where he thought wasn't strategically appropriate. And he asked them, Ya Rasulullah, is this a place that Allah has told you to put us, or is this just simply your own strategy, part of your own strategy? And so he said, Ya Habab, this is just my own idea, my own strategy. It's not revelation. And so Habab ibn Munthar says that, well, I don't believe that this is a good way to station our troops. Rather, we should do is station our troops near the water, and we would go to those other wells and we fill up those wells with rocks, with stones. So, and we'll leave our wells open and create a basin so that, and we place our own cups in it so we can drink from it. So while we fight, we can drink and they can't drink. And so the Prophet ﷺ accepted his advice. So the Prophet ﷺ, we learn lessons of leadership done from Badr. We learn lessons of courage from Badr. We learn lessons of sacrifice from Badr, right? So the Prophet ﷺ is showing people how to appropriately lead, especially when the decisions that are being made are going to affect not only the leader, but others as well. And so this becomes the case. And so eventually the armies of the Meccans, the army of the Meccans, they reach Badr. They turn out to be almost 1,000. The Muslims are a little more than 300. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of his blessing, he doesn't allow the Muslims to see the numbers of the mushrikeen as 3 times their numbers. But it also does another thing. He allows for the mushrikeen to see and observe that the Muslims' numbers are fewer than theirs, in order to increase their arrogance and their confidence. They become overconfident as well. And so while the battle is preparing, the Prophet ﷺ, he's turned to Allah and he's praying. And upon completion of his consultation, he actually says to Sahaba, have good tidings, because Allah has promised me either one of the 2 factions. Either he will give us the spoils of the property we were looking for, or he will give us victory over our enemies on this day. And the victory actually was the better of the 2 things that had been offered to the Prophet ﷺ. But he continued to pray, asking Allah and saying to him, if you allow this small faction to be destroyed, then you won't be worshipped in the land. You won't be worshipped again in this land. And so the fighting begins, and arrow hits the very first casualty, Mihya, the Mawla of Umar ibn Khattab, the first casualty of this revolutionary war. And it turns out that he himself was a black man, in the same way that Crispus Attucks was the first casualty of the Revolutionary War of the American period. And so it begins with dueling. 3 people come out to duel. The Muslims, they overcome those on the side of the mushrikeen, and then a foray begins. And so then Allah sends the angels to support the believers. And so the angels are chopping and killing and chopping off heads as well in support of the believers in this particular situation. But at the end of all of this, in spite of what appeared to be a very gruesome scene, that when we look at the number of casualties, on the side of the Muslims, there are 14 casualties, and on the side of the Mushrikeen, there's 70. 70 people died out of 1,000. 14 on this side, 17, and 70 of the Mushrikeen are taken as captives. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gave authority and permission to the believers, in this case, to fight after telling them not to fight. And in one verse, He describes this in the following fashion. He says, بَعْدَ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ أُذِنَ لِلَّذِينَ يُقَاتَلُونَ بِأَنَّهُمْ ظُلِمُوا وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى نَصْرِهِمْ لَقَدِيرٌ. Permission has been granted to those who are fought against in light of them being oppressed. And Allah is verily capable of supporting them. الَّذِينَ أُخْرِجُوا مِنْ دِيَارِهِمْ بِغَيْرِ حَقٍّ إِلَّا أَن يَقُولُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ. Those who have been expelled from their homes without right, without justice, for no other reason except for saying that our Lord is Allah. What does it make you think about today? I mean, it sounds somewhat familiar to certain things that are happening in the world. There are some people, in this country who want to keep immigrants out, keep refugees out. Some people are forcing people into refugee status through wars, among other things, right? But remember that when we look at the reasons why these wars, oftentimes, in the past at least, were fought, was because of a religious threat. Because people just couldn't deal with the very fact that certain people believe differently than they did. And there's not much different today. That there are people who really, they don't like the fact that Muslims believe in God to begin with, or they believe in a certain type of morality that others don't agree with. The Quran teaches us, وَلَا يَزَالُونَ يَقَاتِلُونَكُمْ حَتَّى يَرَدُّوكُمْ عَنْ دِينِكُمْ إِنِ اسْتَطَاعُوا, that they will continue to fight against you until they turn you back from your religion if they're able to. That these are realities. And I believe during these type of times, it is important for Muslims to return to surahs, chapters like Surah 8, Surah Al-Anfal, Surah Tawbah, Surah 9. It's important for us to read. This is all part of the Quran. We may not like the fact that we have to defend our book at times. But if we believe in the book, we believe is revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that there's no need for embarrassment. The fact we may not have the right interpretation at times to a certain passage should not make us doubt or question the wisdom of the Creator subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And this is one thing, when we look at the Sahaba, and they're being fought. They're being fought because of what they believe in, because of the morality that they accepted. And which means that if people are fighting you, that they're fighting you because there's something valuable that you have. There is something valuable that you have, and they may want it for themselves, but feel that they can't have it, or they can't bear it, right? But there's something valuable about Islam. There's something about a value about traditional morality, traditional marriage, and so many different things you can think of. That there's so many things valuable about what we are. But we cannot allow the fact that people are pressuring us, or even killing us at times, to recant our religion, to in our hearts. It's okay if you're compelled to say something with your tongue, right, under torture. I don't mean under pressure, under torture. If they ask you to say something, that's one thing. But sometimes some of us, we give it up even just under a little bit of pressure. We want to change the whole religion. We want to give it all up, change everything about what we believe and what we practice, because we want to be accepted in a particular type of situation, a certain type of society. And we have to be very conscious of this, of what is considered to be a worthy sacrifice and what is not. In the meantime, our children are watching us, they're observing us, and if we have any hope of them being Muslims in the future, then you might as well give up that hope. If you are going to compromise your religion on very crucial issues, non-negotiable matters, I'm not saying not be compassionate of other people and understand that other people, they have issues and we have issues as well, right? Right. But we cannot make haram halal. We cannot normalize sinful type of actions, right? And so there is an aspect to the prophetic ethos, which is somewhat very, very firm, and sometimes it was abrasive with regard to those who actually meant us harm and meant the Muslims harm. Ramadan is a good opportunity for us to reconnect with this history. And one of the, in my opinion, and I'll end with this, and in my opinion, one of the main reasons that Muslims really suffer so much when it comes to grasping and being able to defend their religion publicly when we're challenged on a number of different issues is because we have failed to study our religion. And many of our leaders as well actually have unfortunately made the mistake of shielding us from certain challenging things that in the Quran. Because even if you're a person who say that you don't believe in the hadith, there's enough in the Quran that troubles the non-Muslims. Yeah, I mean, you're still going to have to contend with blasphemy for fornication, or cutting off your hands for theft, or the hitting verse, or concubines. You're going to have to, so many different things you're going to have to be confronted with. Islam is not meant for everybody. It's not. But we can't try to change it so that we can appease someone else. If you don't like it, and go ahead. Free to go and do what you want to do. We don't want you to do that. But we have to understand that this is Allah's deen. And we have to put our trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase us in our sincerity and in our faith and in our firmness in our defense of this tradition. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات. Yes. That's all. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. But in closing, I'd just like to say once again that when we want to talk about the prophetic ethos, let's make sure that we're giving the entire picture of what he was and what he stood for. That we have things, this religion is called Islam, and it means submission to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which fundamentally means that there are going to be certain things that are challenging. Doesn't mean that everything's going to be easy. It means that some things are going to be challenging. You think that it's easy for a woman who is involved with polygyny to accept that her husband is married to another woman, right? I mean, it's not easy for her to do that. And certain things, even for a man at times, to give up your life if you need to in defense of your family. It's not an easy thing to do, right? But Islam is about challenges. It's about challenging yourself to become a better person, And hopefully you do those things willfully as opposed to doing so out of some threat that someone has given to you and made to you. And when we look at the prophetic ethos, we see that the Prophet ﷺ was not a person who threatened people and a person who forced people to do things. That he did things because he did things for people in hopes that they will be in good standing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If he got into an argument with his wife, he walked out. Why? Because he understood that if you get angry with me, then Allah is going to get angry with you, right? So you know what? Rather than allow the wrath of Allah to descend upon you, I'm going to leave this home right now, right? The Prophet ﷺ, I'm not going to force you to fight, because if I force you to fight, you're going to die, and you're not going to die and get the reward for fighting for the right cause, right? The Prophet, that was his way of doing things. That was his way of doing things. But it is Islam. It's about an internal struggle more than anything else. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to live upon Islam and to die upon Islam. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان واجعلنا من الراشدين. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم، وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات ومؤمنين ومؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات، واغفر لنا اللهم معهم بفضلك وإحسانك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنا نسألك الجنة وما يقرب إليها من قول وعمل، ونعوذ بك من النار وما يقرب إليها من قول وعمل. ربنا تقبل منا صيامنا يا رب العالمين، ربنا تقبل منا قيامنا يا رب العالمين. اللهم ربنا تقبل منا ركوعنا وسجودنا وقراءتنا للقرآن يا رب العالمين في هذا الشهر المبارك يا رب العالمين. اللهم تب علينا يا حليم، اللهم اغفرنا وارحمنا يا كريم. اللهم تقبل منا واسمع دعاءنا يا رب العالمين. اللهم اقسم لنا من خشيتك ما تهول به بيننا وبين معصيتك، ومن طاعتك ما تبلغنا بها جنتك، ومن اليقين ما تهون به علينا مصائب الدنيا، ومتعنا بأسماعنا وأبصارنا وقوتنا ما أحييتنا، واجعله الوارث منا، واجعل ثأرنا على من ظلمنا، وانصرنا على من عادانا، وانصرنا على من عادانا، وانصرنا على من عادانا. ولا تجعل مصيبتنا في ديننا، ولا تجعل الدنيا أكبر همنا ولا مبلغ علمنا، ولا تسلط علينا بذنوبنا من لا يخافك فينا ولا يرحمنا. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته، ولا هما إلا فرجته، ولا دينا إلا قضيته، ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة إلا قضيتها يا أرحم الراحمين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار، وقنا عذاب النار، وقنا عذاب النار. وصل اللهم وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه الأخيار وسلم تسليما كثيرا. وسبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون، وسلام على المرسلين، والحمد لله رب العالمين. وأقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله.